The Burning Climb. A film crew went deep into a Mexican cave in January 1988. They planned to stay underground for 9 days. They set up camp far below the surface. One day, Bill Steele cooked dinner. He lit the camping stove. The stove exploded. Burning gasoline sprayed everywhere. Steele was instantly covered in flames. Fire wrapped around his back and arms. He screamed in agony. His teammates rushed to help. They threw water on him. The gasoline kept burning. Someone tackled him to the ground. They smothered the flames with mud and wet bags. The fire finally died. Steele's back was burned raw. His right hand was destroyed. Skin hung from his palm. They were days away from the surface. No rescue team could reach them. Steele had to climb out himself. They gave him Tylenol for pain. It was not enough. 2 teammates helped him start the journey up. Rain had flooded the passages. Steele gripped wet rocks with his burned hand. Every touch was torture. Then came the rope climbs. Hundreds of feet straight up, over and over again. The biggest climb was 492 feet, nearly 500 feet of rope, plus 17 smaller climbs. Steele screamed as he climbed. The pain was overwhelming, but he never stopped. The climb took 11 hours. 11 hours of pure agony. Finally, Steele reached the surface. He was rushed to a hospital. Doctors treated his severe burns. Remarkably, he survived. He climbed out of one of the deepest caves in the world, with burns that should have killed him. The electric pool. 5 friends went caving in Kentucky in 1988. They arrived at Wigpissel Cave ready to explore. Someone gave them a scary warning at the entrance. An electric pump sat in the water inside the cave. The wires were dangerous. The pump could kill them if it turned on while they were in the water. The friends decided to go in anyway. 2 cavers entered first wearing wetsuits. The entrance was filled with chest-deep water. They had to crawl through it. Suddenly, they felt tingling in their bodies. The water was shocking them with electricity. Gary was the leader of the group. He ran to find the pump's power box. He found it at the owner's house. Nobody was home. He flipped the breaker off. He ran back to his friends. The power was cut. The group wasn't sure what to do. One caver felt confident. He decided to test the water. He stepped into the pool. Everything seemed fine at first. Then he took another step. Electricity exploded through his body. Every muscle locked tight. He couldn't move at all. He was frozen like a statue in the electric water. His friends watched in horror. They had to save him fast, but they couldn't touch him or the water. One friend grabbed an old wooden board and he pushed it into the water. 2 others held his legs to keep him safe. They wedged the board behind their frozen friend. They pushed hard through the water. His body dragged along the rocky bottom. Finally, he cleared the pool. He collapsed on the ground. His muscles twitched uncontrollably. His heart skipped beats. Burn marks covered his skin, but he was breathing. He was alive. The friends rushed him to get medical help. The wrong turn. On December 15th, 1988, 3 cave divers entered Emerald Sink in Florida. Bill Cronin was their leader. He had over 100 cave dives. The other 2 trusted his experience. They swam deep into the flooded cave, 150 feet down, 800 feet inside the dark passages. They reached their limit and turned around. On the way back, they reached a junction. Multiple guide ropes met here. They followed a line marked with exit arrows. Exit arrows always point to safety. Suddenly, Cronin flashed his light. He signaled they were going the wrong way. His 2 companions were confused. The arrows pointed to the exit, but Cronin insisted they were wrong. He pointed to a different tunnel, a deep passage leading away from Emerald Sink. The 2 divers checked their air gauges. Their air was running dangerously low. They believed Cronin was making a fatal mistake. They tried to tell him, but Cronin refused to listen. He was certain he was right. The 2 divers faced a terrible choice. Follow their leader and probably die, or trust the exit arrows and leave him behind. They made their decision. They turned away from Cronin. They followed the exit arrows to safety. They barely made it out alive. Their air was almost gone, but Cronin never came back. A recovery team searched the cave. They found his body 300 feet from the entrance. He was trapped in a ceiling pocket, completely separated from the guideline. His air tanks were empty. He had swum 200 feet in the wrong direction, toward Clear-Cut Sink 5,000 feet away. His equipment was poorly maintained. His regulators were clogged. Breathing was difficult at that depth. Nitrogen narcosis clouded his mind. It made him confused and irrational. He insisted the exit arrows were wrong. He swam confidently into the darkness, away from safety, away from his companions. His overconfidence killed him. The 2 divers who left him survived. They made the hardest choice of their lives. The lost diver. On June 19, 1988, 2 divers arrived at Chacal Cave in Mexico. They came to recover scuba gear from a deadly accident. A year earlier, 2 divers had died in this underwater cave. Their expensive equipment was still inside. The 2 new divers wanted to get it back, but they made a terrible mistake. They had no training for cave diving. Each diver carried only 1 light, no backup lights at all. Their air tanks had only 1 valve. If it failed, they would have no air. Worst of all was their guideline system. The lead diver draped the rope over his shoulder. The second diver followed behind holding the spool. This was dangerous and backwards. The 2 men entered the dark underwater cave. They swam deeper into the flooded passages. They reached 200 feet inside the cave. Then the second diver panicked. Fear took over his mind completely. He dropped the spool and bolted for the exit. His fins kicked up huge clouds of silt. The water turned into a thick, murky soup. The lead diver suddenly felt the rope fall from his shoulder. His guideline was gone. He was alone in complete darkness. He could not see anything at all. He had no rope to follow back. The second diver made it out alive. He surfaced and called for help immediately. A rescue diver named Jim coat, rushed to the cave. He entered the water at 6 p.m. He swam fast through the dark passages, but he was too late. At 200 feet inside, he found the body. The lost diver had run out of air. His fingers showed terrible marks. He had clawed at the rock walls around him. In his final moments, he had scratched the limestone desperately. His lungs were burning. He drowned alone in the darkness. The rescue team brought his body out. They also recovered the equipment from the earlier accident. Land of the Swirling Mist Cave incident. Tom Dawson and Bob Sacco were experienced cave explorers. They went to explore a new cave called Land of the Swirling Mist Cave in Colorado. The cave had big rooms filled with piles of rocks. Tom decided to dig through a pile of rocks to find a new tunnel. He lay on his side and started pulling rocks away. Suddenly, a huge rock slab fell from the ceiling. The heavy rock slab landed on top of Tom and trapped him. The rock broke several of Tom's ribs, and his left shoulder was badly hurt and he couldn't move it. Tom was pinned to the cave floor and couldn't breathe well. Bob heard Tom crying in pain and started digging to help him. As Bob removed rocks, the slab pressed down harder on Tom. The rock slab shifted and hit Tom's head. His helmet was pinned under the heavy rock. Tom used his free hand to unbuckle his helmet strap. He pulled hard, and the helmet strap came loose. Tom quickly slid his body out from under the rock. The rock crashed down right where his body had been. Tom's ribs were broken, and his shoulder was badly hurt, but he knew he had to get out of the cave right away. Tom ran toward the cave entrance as fast as he could. Bob gave him a flashlight and followed behind. Tom felt dizzy, and his head hurt badly. Near the entrance, he had to crawl through a narrow space. Halfway through, Tom collapsed because he was so hurt. His wife, Nancy, was waiting near the cave entrance. Nancy heard Tom calling for help. She grabbed his clothes and pulled him out of the narrow space. Tom pushed with his feet to help her drag him out. Nancy pulled Tom all the way to the cave entrance. His wife ran to get their phone and call for an ambulance. They drove to meet the ambulance at the visitor center. Tom was rushed to the hospital. The doctors found he had a concussion, broken ribs, and internal bleeding. His shoulder was dislocated and he had many other injuries. Tom almost died, but he survived the terrible accident. Kong Adventure Cave Incident. Carl O'Keefe was a 49-year-old father from England. On April 22, 2023, he took his family to Kong Adventure Center for his niece's birthday. The center had fake caves made of fiberglass for people to explore. Carl went into the caves with his children to have fun. His kids crawled through the narrow tunnels easily because they were small, but Carl was too big for the tight spaces. The cave tunnels got narrower and narrower as he crawled. Carl tried to turn around in a tight section of the cave. He got stuck between the walls and couldn't move forward or backward. Carl was trapped and couldn't breathe well. His children noticed something was wrong and ran to get help. The Adventure Center workers came quickly to help. They tried to pull Carl out with ropes, but he was stuck too tight. The workers called the police, fire department, and ambulance. Mountain rescue teams came to help too. Carl had been trapped for almost 1 hour. His breathing got worse and he was getting very sick. More rescue teams came with special equipment. Workers took apart parts of the climbing wall to reach Carl better. After 4 hours and 7 minutes, they finally freed Carl from the cave. Carl was not breathing and looked very bad. They rushed him to the hospital right away. Carl was in the hospital for 10 days in very serious condition. His family stayed with him and hoped he would get better, but Carl's injuries were too serious. On May 2nd, 2023, Carl died from his injuries.